Since the dawn of humanity, sex has been a subject of great interest and profound philosophical debate. Throughout history and across different cultures, various thinkers have dedicated themselves to analyzing this essential aspect of human existence, seeking to understand its nature, purpose, and impacts. For Plato, love and physical desire were closely connected, with carnal attraction being a manifestation of the longing for eternal beauty. In the Symposium, he describes love as an ascending journey, where physical attraction is merely the first step toward the contemplation of the divine. According to this view, sexual desire is not an end in itself, but an initial step toward the world of ideas, where true perfection resides. Aristotle, on the other hand, had a more pragmatic and biological approach, seeing sex as a natural means for the perpetuation of the species. Additionally, he recognized its role in building social and emotional bonds. For him, sexual pleasure was a healthy part of human life, as long as it remained within the limits of moderation. The philosopher also argued that sex strengthened marital ties, promoting stability and harmony within marriage. The Stoics, in turn, had a more restrained and disciplined view of sexuality. Philosophers like Epictetus and Seneca emphasized that reason should govern sexual impulses, preventing uncontrolled passions from diverting individuals from their pursuit of virtue. They advocated for the idea of apatheia, a state of inner tranquility achievable only through mastery over desires. For the Stoics, sexual discipline was a tool for attaining serenity and self-sufficiency. During the Middle Ages, Christian thought predominated and shaped perspectives on sex. Theologians such as St. Augustine and Thomas Aquinas exerted significant influence in this field. Augustine considered sexual desire a consequence of original sin, believing it should be strictly controlled and restricted to marriage for the purpose of procreation. Thomas Aquinas, while also asserting that sexuality should have a moral purpose, viewed sexual union within marriage as a legitimate way to express love and collaborate with God's creative work, provided it was exercised with moderation and respect. In modern times, Sigmund Freud revolutionized the understanding of sexuality by placing it at the core of the human psyche. For him, sexual impulses played a fundamental role in personality development and behavior formation. He introduced concepts such as libido and the unconscious, demonstrating how repressing these desires could lead to neuroses and psychological conflicts. Freud argued that sexuality should be understood and integrated into people's lives in a balanced way. Simone de Beauvoir, from a feminist existentialist perspective, explored sex through the lenses of power and autonomy. In The Second Sex, she analyzed how patriarchal society shaped female sexuality, arguing that true freedom could only be achieved when women had control over their own bodies and desires. Beauvoir criticized the objectification of women and emphasized that female emancipation required the right to exercise sexuality without societal impositions. Michel Foucault, on the other hand, studied sexuality as a phenomenon shaped by power and knowledge. In The History of Sexuality, he explored how social norms and discourses regulate sexual practices, shaping identities and behaviors. For Foucault, sex is not merely a natural act but a battleground where political and social forces exert influence over individuals. He argued that sexual liberation could be seen as an act of resistance against these structures of control. Jean-Paul Sartre approached sex through the relationship between freedom and bad faith. In Being and Nothingness, he described sexual desire as an attempt to possess the other, turning the partner into an object. For Sartre, sexual relationships reveal both human freedom and vulnerability, requiring a constant balance between the pursuit of pleasure and interpersonal responsibility. He saw sex as a reflection of the complexity of human relationships, capable of enriching or complicating existence. Herbert Marcuse, influenced by Marx and Freud, analyzed how sexuality could function as a revolutionary force. In his work Eros and Civilization, he argued that sexual repression serves as a mechanism of social control and that the liberation of desire could contribute to a more just and free society. For Marcuse, sexuality represents both pleasure and creativity, and if freed from societal restrictions, it could lead to individual emancipation and social transformation. He proposed a new approach to relationships based on shared pleasure and equality, challenging the repressive norms of the capitalist system. Today, thinkers like Judith Butler question traditional conceptions of gender and sexuality. Butler argues that gender is not fixed but rather a social construct that can be reinterpreted and modified. Her theory challenges the rigidity of sexual identities and suggests a more fluid and inclusive perspective. She invites us to reflect on how social expectations shape our gender performances and how we can resist these norms to create new forms of identity and expression. Eastern philosophy also offers distinct perspectives on sexuality. In Taoism, for example, sex is understood as a means of balancing yin and yang energies. When practiced with awareness and respect, sexual activity is seen as a tool for promoting physical and spiritual well-being. Taoist teachings emphasize the importance of reciprocity and the harmonious flow of energy between partners, fostering health and longevity. Arthur Schopenhauer, with his pessimistic view of existence, saw sex as a reflection of the will to live, an instinctive and relentless drive that leads to suffering. For him, sexual desire exemplifies how we are enslaved by this blind will, and the only way to escape this cycle is through renunciation and celibacy. He believed that giving up sensory pleasures was a path to greater inner peace and the minimization of life's inherent suffering. Friedrich Nietzsche, on the other hand, viewed sex as a manifestation of vitality and creative power. In his Dionysian perspective, sexual desire was a force that drove individuals to overcome limitations and affirm life. For him, celebrating instincts and the body was essential to breaking free from repressive moral values and creating new paths for existence. Immanuel Kant associated sexual morality with human dignity. He argued that using someone solely as a means for personal gratification violated the ethical principle of treating people as ends in themselves. For Kant, marriage provided a context in which sexual desire could be legitimized, as long as it was based on mutual respect and commitment, ensuring equality and dignity for both partners. Conversely, hedonists like Aristippus of Cyrene advocated for sexual pleasure as one of the greatest sources of happiness. For them, sex should be enjoyed without guilt, as long as it did not harm anyone. This philosophy emphasizes that the pursuit of pleasure is a natural and essential aspect of human life, and that satisfying sensual desires can lead to a more fulfilling and satisfying existence. In Buddhist tradition, sex is often seen as a potential obstacle on the path to enlightenment. Carnal desires are considered distractions that must be overcome to achieve true spiritual freedom. However, some branches of Buddhism, such as Tantra, seek to integrate sexuality into the process of self-discovery, transforming desire into a tool for meditation and inner growth. In contemporary ethical debates, issues such as consent, equality, and justice play a central role in reflections on sexuality. Philosophers like Martha Nussbaum and Peter Singer analyze how sexual relationships can be ethical and respectful, promoting the well-being of all parties involved. Consent is seen as an essential principle to ensure that sexual interactions are based on autonomy and mutual respect. Additionally, the fight for LGBTQ+ rights has expanded discussions on justice and recognition, advocating for equality across all orientations and identities. Technology is also reshaping how we experience sexuality. The Internet, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence create new possibilities and raise questions about the nature of desire, intimacy, and love. The rise of digital relationships and practices like sexting challenges traditional concepts of emotional closeness, while technological advancements spark discussions on privacy, consent, and authenticity in sexual interactions. Ultimately, sexuality reflects the human condition, revealing our deepest desires, insecurities, and need for connection. As we continue to explore its complexities, we are challenged to question established paradigms and develop a broader and more authentic understanding of ourselves and others. What does the future hold for the philosophy of sex? Only time and our relentless search for truth can answer. Thank you for watching, and until next time.